Hello tanks and tankettes, welcome to a view replay, and we're looking at a tank that I've actually never had on the channel before. It's the legendary Chiri. Now this is being driven by Archaon, and it's not good matchmaking. It's mostly tier 8s in this battle, but there's also a tier 9 per team. And the enemy team's gotten a tier 9 heavy, whereas his team's only gotten a tier 9 medium tank. But it's a T54E1, and it's good matchmaking for a T54E1. For a Chiri, on the other hand, this is not particularly good matchmaking. So, the Chiri, most people think of it as being kind of undergunned, because it has the same gun, essentially, as its predecessor, except it's an auto-loading version of that gun. But actually, if you compare it to the rest of the tier 7 mediums, which are, as a group, kind of undergunned, it is actually just about average. In fact, looking at Tank Inspector, it is bang on the average. It's about 0.6 millimeters of average pen off the average on the compared to its peers. It's the same gun as the tier 6, but the tier 6, the Cheeto, has a very, that's a very good gun for a tier 6 medium tank. For tier 7, well, the best pen on any of the tier 7 mediums is the Panther with that ridiculous long 75mm gun with 198 average pen. This with 155 average pen, it's better than the Comet, it's better than the T43 and the KV13. It's only just behind the T20, so it's not like this is a particularly hideous gun. More problematic is the fact that this is a very, very large tank. It's basically sort of a heavy tank size, but it's medium tank armor, so you don't really have the mobility, or you don't have the profile to be extra sneaky. So you are relying on finding those soft targets and getting them with the pretty good rate of fire. Now this T34-3, really don't know what he was thinking. He just went a bit ham there, saw Archaon in his Chiri, thought, I can pen that, drove into really the middle of the firing line of a pack of friendly tanks, and in exchange for doing 400 damage to Archaon, which hurt, lost 1,000 of his own hit points. And one of the benefits of driving the Chiri is that it has quite a lot of hit points for a tier 7 medium. In fact, if you compare the T34-3's hit points to this is only 50 hit points behind, so that was not a smart move on the part of that driver there. And, that's a familiar name. That's a very familiar name. Yes, this game actually contained a Cirque 2 platoon. Ginge there in a Panther 2, and also Jammy Shammy in a Panther 2. Although Jammy Shammy isn't actually in Cirque 2 anymore. He went to, I don't even know, he had a fit of, like, Cirque 2 is the pinnacle of World of Tanks clans. I don't know what he was thinking going and joining another clan, but whatever. My hit squads will find him someday. But, anyway, yeah, I mean, this gun, it's 130 average damage per AP shell, and you get 3 of them, and you can unload that clip really quickly. That's the equivalent of a Russian 122mm shell, basically. And that's the equivalent of that every 8 seconds or whatever the reload is. It's a pretty good reload. It's got a pretty good DPM. The other good thing that this tank has going for it is it's also got good gun depression. So it's kind of like the Comet in some way. It's got better pen than the Comet. I can't say offhand if it's got better DPM than the Comet, but there's Jammy Shammy going for the 1390 RAM, and yes, there we go. He wanted that RAM, he really did. But it's got also pretty good gun depression, although I think the Comet has actually got better gun depression, because the Comet's got exceptional gun depression. So I would take the Comet over this thing, but I don't actually have this thing yet, so anyway. So in his email to me, Archaon actually, he talked about what his thought processes were for this battle. So he was initially going to support the heavies in the middle here. And then it all went a bit pear-shaped, basically, as battles tend to do. No plan survives contact with the enemy, as the saying goes. So, oh my god, that T29's about to die. So, at this point, he's a bit more kind of winging it, and he has lost some health. He actually got shot by Jammy, and, oh, hello. Yep, Carnarvon turret, we'll take that. He's in a bit of a bad way, and in part that's because of that T-34-3 at the beginning. You know, that was an above average roll for that guy, and it's sort of unfortunate that that happened, but you can't really, you can't predict what enemy players are going to do. You know, sometimes they might do something that's really a bad move, but it still hurts you. Anyway, that Tiger one's AFK, and he says himself in his email that actually sitting here to, you know, he's farming damage essentially. That might not have been the best plan, because that gives the Carnarvon time to reposition. It gives the enemy artillery time to reload, so may not have been the smartest idea. But anyway, so we're facing this Carnarvon now, and he's actually doing an unusual thing here. He's shooting at the turret. And you might be thinking, you don't shoot a Carnarvon in the turret, not from the front. Well, actually, a lot of the bounciness of the Carnarvon turret and the Centurion turret as well, because they're essentially the same turret, is from that big gun mantlet. And if you can get the area above the gun mantlet, well, some of those shells are bouncing, but there's also it's a fairly flush commander's hatch, but there is a commander's hatch there that you can shoot at, and that's what he's going for. It's also worth noting that that Carnarvon has got a 17-pounder, so it's not fully upgraded, and perhaps knowing that Archaon decided to take that hit because it was going to be less painful than a 20-pounder shell. So, the KV-4, in the meantime, took a hit from the enemy artillery. The north is lost completely. The T-29 is also pretty badly beaten up, but we might have a chance to take out this enemy arty, so he's going to aim and do that. And one of his shells gets unlucky and tracks him or whatever, but the second one takes him, and that's fine. That makes things a bit more doable, but this is not really looking particularly good. Now there's that enemy 30 who's got perfect shots on the rear of both the KV-4 and the T-29. He's taken out the KV-4, and we're rapidly running out of tanks. This was quite a close battle for a lot of it, but there's just a couple of things that, you know, in the end, the enemy team having that M103, who, as we can see, has still got a lot of his health and has turned up at a very bad moment, that possibly swung things in their favour. Even though the T-34-3, and you'll see at various points in the in-game chat that the enemy team, including Jammy and I can't remember if Ginge says anything, but the enemy T-34-3, we can see where he was spotted, E0. Our T-29 tried to get to the cap, and that T-34-3 killed him. But the T-34-3's contribution to this battle was basically that initial very silly move, and surprise Ferdinand. And then he drove all the way to back to his cap area, and then just kind of sat there for the rest of the battle. That was his contribution. I don't know. But even though they were essentially a tank down from that, the enemy team is still... They just had the hit points advantage at the end there. They had that M103 turning up, and the tanks in the north were just not able to do quite enough. So, yeah, it's unfortunate that 30 was there. He wasn't expecting that 30 to be there. He actually had in mind, again, from his email, that he was going to flank round, and although he says he thought the battle was lost at that point, that he might get to do an extra clip worth of damage. But that 30 being there kind of ruined his plans. But if he'd managed to get round behind the 30, I mean, that could have been an extra kill even. That could have been a nice amount of extra damage. But alas, it was not to be. However, he still did quite a respectable amount of damage, considering that was technically a tier 9 battle. 3,951. That was a high caliber, and because he got the high caliber, he got courageous resistance, which meant that was an ace tanker game, because he got the same amount of XP as if he had won. So, although it seems kind of low, I mean, it was 940 base XP for an ace tanker, it was clearly enough on that particular day. And looking at the teams, he was by far and away the best of his team, although his friendly artillery, the M4043, actually did almost as much damage. They did 3k damage, so they did a fair amount. But, yeah, he was just able to keep that gun going, and he was able to take advantage of weak spots and not having to sit and try and shoot at people's strongest armor, because the premium ammo on this tank, it's not even APCR, it's just premium AP. You get about 30 odd extra penetration. It's not a huge amount, So it's a bit, again, I'm going back to this comparison with the Comet. Although it's got an autoloader, the low pen of this and the low pen of the AP on the Comet, comparatively speaking, means that you have to be very opportunistic. You have to look for the softer armor areas. You have to look to get around to shoot people in those softer armor areas. And the sheer rate of fire of this gun, and the fact it has an autoloader, and the fact that it has the only autoloader in the game, to my knowledge, that you can fit a gun rammer to, and that is unique to the Chiri as far as I know. It means that you can pump out those shots really quite quickly, and if you get a target that you can hurt, you can really hurt them. But you have to be quite careful about taking any fire in return yourself, because you don't have the armor, and although you do have hit points, you've only got so many hit points at the end of the day. You can't just if you trade all of them away, then too early on, then it might prove to be fairly critical later on in the battle, where you need to be able to take a hit and then suddenly you can't. So I'm actually I'm still working my way towards the Chiri myself. It is, I don't want to say it's a bad tank, it's a highly situational tank, and we'll see how well I get on with it. I might not do very well with it just because it's very big and very poorly armoured, and it requires, I think, being quite a good player in medium tanks to get the most out of it, and we all know that's not necessarily true of me, but we'll see. You know, I like my Comet, I get on well with the Comet, so maybe I'll get on well with the Chiri, who knows. But the Comet has got a couple of things going for it that the Chiri doesn't, even if it doesn't have that autoloader. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. So, if you enjoyed this replay, you can hit the like button, you can leave any comments below, you can subscribe to my channel, and, as always, stay tuned for more.